I'm a missions catalyst with Biblical Ministries Worldwide, and I'm here in the country of India, where I've been working with some of BMW's newest partners. I've been privileged to preach to and teach Indian pastors, seminary professors, and Bible college students for the last several days. But the hope of gospel advance in India doesn't rest with people like me. American pastors and missionaries aren't even welcome here. The hope of gospel advance in India rests with the power of God working through Indian Christians who are passionate about and prepared for ministry to reach their Muslim and Hindu neighbors with the gospel of Jesus Christ. The best people to reach Indians are Indians. For that reason, I've spent my short time in this vast country working with ministries that are equipping nationals for gospel work. Those ministries include a church planting church plant, a Bible conference for pastors, and a vibrant new seminary. Let's take a look at the audacious work being done by our Indian brothers and sisters for the cause of Christ. My journey began in the bustling city of Mumbai, the second largest city in India and the 8th largest city in the world. Some find the barely controlled chaos of India to be repulsive. I love the place, and I love its people. The Indian culture is ancient and profound. But two things are unmistakable when you visit India. One is the fact that people are literally everywhere. And the other is India's deep spiritual darkness. India has recently been recognized as the most populous country in the world, officially overtaking China. There are over 1.4 billion people in India, making up almost 18% of the world's population. That means that 1 in every 6 people alive today lives in India. I like to put the vastness of India's population into biblical perspective. When Jesus walked the earth 2,000 years ago, the population of the entire world was just 300 million people. Matthew 9 teaches that Jesus had compassion on the multitudes in Israel because of their lost condition. He lamented the contrast between the plentiful harvest and the paltry number of laborers. Can we not assume then that Jesus has compassion on the multitudes in India? Can we not be certain that Jesus wants us to pray for more laborers, more converts, and more churches here? Can we not expect the light of the gospel to penetrate this vast darkness? By God's grace, the light is shining in India. We left Mumbai and headed south to a prosperous city in southern India. We were hosted by a pastoral team, one of whom is a new partner with BMW. The story of this Indian couple who had a comfortable life in suburban America is fascinating. They were typical Indian American Christians in many ways, financially stable, a close-knit family, and they were committed to their local church. But they had a growing sense that the Lord had something more for them. They moved to India with their 4 children to help plant a new church, intending to stay for just 12 to 18 months. But God changed their plans. It became so obvious that God's power was uniquely on display in the church they had helped to start, that they determined to stay in India long term. I was privileged to worship with this new church, and I was amazed by its health and vitality. The worship service was intentionally biblical, and the assembly is mature, including a bounty of godly men. Although the church was planted just 2 years ago, there are already 6 young men being trained for pastoral ministry and prepared to plant other churches. This gospel-centered church and its pastors already cast a long shadow over India. They are laboring to train hundreds of other Indian churches about sound gospel ministry. I left this young church encouraged and optimistic about the work that God will continue to do through these believers who are passionate to see gospel advance in India. The next stop on my journey was Chennai, a city on the opposite coast of India from Mumbai. The focus of my time in Chennai was equipping Indian pastors. No missionary work is more rewarding and strategic than teaching local leaders how to do the work of gospel ministry. And this conference was no exception. Mindful of another pastors' conference recorded in Acts 20, 17 through 38, I shamelessly plagiarized the Apostle Paul and his inspired philosophy of ministry. I urged these pastors to pursue godliness, to love their people, and to relentlessly and boldly preach the word. Pray with me for long-term fruit, not only in the lives of these brothers, but in the lives of the people whom they shepherd. After the conference, I was able to take in part of Chennai's history, a history that is inseparable from the story of Christianity in India. The gospel didn't arrive in India through missionary heroes like William Carey or Amy Carmichael in the 18th, 19th, or 20th centuries. Rather, the gospel was brought to India in the 1st century by Thomas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples. Although we too easily critique him as doubting Thomas, his work in Chennai was courageous. He planted gospel seeds that are still bearing fruit today before being speared to death by a zealous Hindu. A Catholic church marks the supposed spot of Thomas' martyrdom, a reminder of the sacrifice that is often required to see gospel advance amid rampant idolatry. My final stop took me to another city in southern India. One of my good friends has established an outpost there to train Christian leaders. Once again, a native of India with a successful career in America was prompted by God to resign from his job in order to leverage his life for gospel advance among his people. A pastor friend described this new BMW partner as a lamb in America, but a tiger in India. The imagery is accurate. Although this church, Bible college, and seminary are only a decade old, and although they've had property for less than half that time, God has raised up a great work here. In addition to preaching in chapel and teaching on expository preaching, I was privileged to be part of the dedication of a new building to serve the school's 74 students. These young Christians come from all over India, and they represent the linguistic and cultural breadth that is such a unique part of their homeland. These students, and others like them, represent the best hope for the gospel to spread throughout India and into neighboring countries. This new college is a gospel powerhouse. 2 Timothy 2:2 is happening here every day as the Bible's Leaders Training Leaders strategy continues. Rarely have I seen a ministry do more work with less money. Buildings have sprung up with astonishing speed. Just over a year has passed since my previous visit, and the changes are remarkable. Boys who had bunked in a shed are now in a comfortable dormitory. Meals which had been served under a tree on a wobbly table with mismatched chairs are now served in a gorgeous new cafeteria. The foundation for a new girls' dorm has been laid, and we're praying for provision to finish it. But the measure of a seminary is its faculty, not its buildings. Long before there were impressive structures, God was at work assembling a team of faithful Bible teachers. A highlight of my time on campus was time spent among these good men, discussing the scriptures with them and sharpening one another for more effective ministry. These men love the Word, and they eagerly and joyfully pour into the lives of their students. God's hand is on this ministry, and its ambitious leader is stretching for more influence for Christ. The gospel momentum and drive represented in this work are absolutely thrilling. The wind of the Spirit is blowing in southern India. Still, India continues to be steeped in idolatry. Hinduism comprises almost 80% of the population, and government leaders are becoming less and less tolerant of other religions. Persecution is prevalent, both against Muslims, who make up 14% of the population, and Christians, who make up just over 2%. But even the number of professing Christians is misleading. Many are Roman Catholics, or adherents to the prosperity gospel, who lack even a basic understanding of the true gospel. And yet, the promise of Jesus has not expired. He said, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." Nor can the gates of Hinduism, the gates of Islam, or the gates of any religion which challenges Jesus' claim that salvation from sins is available only through faith in Him. Jesus and His church win. And I'm praying with renewed fervency and urgency that Jesus will win in India. The needs in India are overwhelming. Evangelical Christians are a tiny minority of this vast population. And yet, the power of spiritual darkness is no match for the light of Jesus Christ. God is doing great and mighty things all over the world, things we can't even imagine. And that includes the beautiful and exotic but dark country of India. BMW is privileged to play a small part. Will you pray with us as we seek to evangelize the lost, disciple believers, train leaders, and plant healthy churches everywhere?